New Delhi, July 4, 1991. A convoy of armored vehicles moves through the pre-dawn darkness toward Indira Gandhi International Airport. Inside are sealed crates containing 47 tons of gold, the sovereign reserves of the Republic of India, being loaded onto cargo planes bound for London. India is 2 weeks from defaulting on its foreign debt. The country holds less than $1.2 billion in reserves. Not enough to cover 3 weeks of imports. The Soviet Union, India's largest trading partner, has collapsed. The Gulf War has sent oil prices through the roof. Moody's has downgraded Indian debt twice. The gold is collateral. India is pawning its national treasure to the Bank of England and the Bank of Japan in exchange for $405 million in emergency foreign currency. Now picture this. March 2026. Turkey's central bank moves 58 tons of gold in 2 weeks. Some sold outright, some pledged as collateral in swap agreements with international banks in London. Turkey imports 90% of its oil and 98% of its natural gas. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Energy prices have doubled. The lira is in freefall. And now Caracas, 2019. Venezuela has pledged gold to Deutsche Bank and Citibank for emergency loans. The country cannot make the repayments. Deutsche Bank confiscates 20 tons. Citibank takes $1.1 billion in gold. The gold is gone, forever. 3 countries, 3 crises. The same act of desperation. And each one proves the same uncomfortable truth. Gold is the asset you pawn because it is the most valuable thing you own. Nobody gives you an emergency loan backed by your old bicycle. Here's what keeps me up at night. The fact that gold works as collateral, that every major bank in the world will lend against it, is the strongest possible proof that gold has real value. If it didn't, nobody would accept it as security. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what happened in each of these 3 cases, who authorized the pledge, what they received, whether they got the gold back, and what it means for anyone who owns physical gold today. Stick with me. And before we dive in, this is history, not financial advice. Do your own research. The pattern is simple. A country runs out of foreign currency. It cannot borrow on international markets because its credit is shot. It has one asset that every bank in the world will accept: gold. It pawns the gold, gets cash, and hopes it can repay before the gold is lost. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. The difference between the two is the most important lesson in this video. Case 1. India, 1991. Here is what blows people's minds. India did not pawn its gold once. It did it twice in the same crisis. The first tranche happened in May 1991, under the caretaker government of Prime Minister Chandrasekhar. India pledged 20 tons of confiscated gold, not the central bank's reserves, but gold seized from smugglers and tax evaders, to the Union Bank of Switzerland. The deal was structured as a sale with a repurchase option at 6% interest. 4 shipments dispatched in May raised roughly $200 million. That was not enough. The crisis deepened. The rupee was collapsing. Foreign reserves were draining by the day. The second tranche was authorized after P.V. Narasimha Rao became Prime Minister on June 21st and Manmohan Singh became Finance Minister on June 24th. The Reserve Bank of India pledged 47 tons of its own gold, central bank, sovereign reserves, to the Bank of England and the Bank of Japan. Both demanded physical transfer. 4 shipments left by air starting July 4th. Across both tranches, 67 tons pledged, approximately $600 million raised. The revelation caused a political earthquake. Pledging gold was seen as national humiliation, a country of nearly 900 million people pawning its jewelry to survive. Opposition leaders called it a sellout. The public was outraged. But here is what happened next. India repaid the loans within months. Between September and November 1991, every ounce came back. The crisis catalyzed the landmark 1991 reforms. Liberalization, privatization, globalization, transforming India from a closed, stagnant economy into one of the fastest growing in the world. And then the full circle. In November 2009, the Reserve Bank of India bought 200 tons of gold from the International Monetary Fund for $6.7 billion. The country that had pawned its gold in desperation 18 years earlier was now one of the largest sovereign gold buyers in the world. India's case is the success story. It pawned the gold. It got it back. It used the crisis to reform. But not every country gets that ending. Case 2. Turkey, 2026. Turkey has a habit of using gold as an emergency ATM during the 2018 lira crisis, during COVID in 2020, during the 2023 earthquake and inflation crisis, when it sold 159 tons through the Borsa Istanbul exchange. The central bank builds gold reserves when times are good and liquidates them when times are bad. The March 2026 episode was triggered by the war. The US-Iran conflict sent oil past $100 a barrel. Turkey imports virtually all of its energy. The lira was under severe pressure. In 2 weeks, Turkey moved approximately 58 tons of gold, worth over $8 billion. Roughly 22 tons were sold outright. Between 34 and 36 tons were used in gold for foreign exchange swap agreements, structured as spot sales with forward repurchase contracts. The counterparties were international investment banks operating in London's over-the-counter market. Turkey had deposited approximately 111 tons with the Bank of England, enabling rapid operations without cross-border transport. The weekly drop of roughly 50 tons was the largest single week decline in Turkey's gold reserves since at least 2013. And here is the uncomfortable question nobody in Ankara wants to answer. If energy prices stay above $100 and the war persists, can Turkey afford to buy back the gold it pledged? Swap agreements are technically collateralized loans. The gold legally belongs to the counterparty until it is repurchased. If Turkey cannot repay, the gold stays with the banks forever. One financial consultant captured the irony perfectly. Turkey spent years aggressively accumulating gold to reduce its dependence on the dollar, then pledged that same gold as collateral to borrow dollars. Turkey's case is the question mark. The gold is pledged but not yet lost. Whether it comes back depends on a war that has not ended. Quick pause. If you are realizing that the gold you hold in your own hands cannot be pledged, frozen, or confiscated by a foreign bank, hit that subscribe button. This is the Fiscal Historian. I show you the history so you see the patterns before they repeat. Case 3. Venezuela. The gold is gone. Venezuela is the cautionary tale. The country that pawned its gold and never got it back. Hugo Chavez made a dramatic show of repatriating 160 tons of gold to Caracas in 2011 and 2012. He wanted it on Venezuelan soil, under Venezuelan control, safe from foreign governments. But the gold Chavez left in London, stored at the Bank of England, became collateral for a series of increasingly desperate financial operations. In 2015, Citibank structured a $1.6 billion credit operation backed by Venezuelan gold. In 2016, Deutsche Bank provided $750 million, taking 20 tons as collateral. There were additional swaps, including a $1.7 billion Deutsche Bank deal using 30 to 40 tons. And then the money ran out. Venezuela could not make the repayments. On June 4, 2019, Deutsche Bank confiscated the 20 tons from the failed swap. Citibank took control of approximately $1.10 billion in gold when Venezuela missed the buyback deadline. Venezuela's gold at the Bank of England had declined from 99 tons in 2011 to roughly 14 tons by April 2018. Most of what remained abroad was lost through failed swaps. And then it got worse. Under US sanctions, the Bank of England refused to release the remaining gold. A British High Court case followed in June 2020. The judge ruled that the question of who could instruct the Bank of England depended on which government Britain recognized, Nicolas Maduro or Juan Guaido. The gold sat frozen in a vault in London while Venezuelans went hungry. Chavez repatriated 160 tons to protect it from foreign governments. The gold he left in London was seized by foreign banks. The gold in Caracas could not be monetized because no reputable dealer would touch sanctioned metal. Venezuela is what happens when you pawn the one asset that was supposed to save you. How gold swaps actually work. A gold swap has two parts. First, the central bank sells physical gold to a counterparty, usually an investment bank, bullion bank, or the Bank for International Settlements. The central bank receives foreign currency. Second, a forward contract commits the borrower to repurchase the gold at a slightly higher price on a future date. The price difference is the implicit interest rate. The gold is typically held at the Bank of England, the most liquid gold market. Legal disputes are governed by English law and referred to the London Court of International Arbitration. The gold legally stays on the central bank's balance sheet even though it has been physically transferred. Convenient for political optics. But if the central bank cannot repay, the counterparty keeps the gold. The optics are irrelevant. At peak, the Bank for International Settlements had an estimated 552 tons outstanding in gold swaps. That is 552 tons of sovereign gold sitting in other people's vaults, technically belonging to the borrower, practically belonging to the lender. The three-part lesson: India pawned its gold, repaid within months, got every ounce back, and used the crisis to transform its economy. India is what happens when pawning buys you time, and you use that time wisely. Turkey pawned its gold to survive an energy crisis caused by a war it did not start. Whether Turkey gets its gold back depends on whether the war ends before the swap agreements expire. Turkey is what happens when pawning buys you time, and you do not control the clock. Venezuela pawned its gold, could not repay, and lost it. The banks kept the metal. The government kept the receipts. The people kept nothing. Venezuela is what happens when you pawn the one asset that was supposed to save you. The warning signs right now: the United States has imposed a naval blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. Oil is near $100. Multiple countries are under financial pressure, not just Turkey. Any country that imports most of its energy and holds gold reserves is a candidate for the next pawn transaction, and every one of those transactions proves the same thing. Gold is the collateral of last resort. Banks do not accept stocks in an emergency. They do not accept real estate. They do not accept government promises. They accept gold, because gold is the one asset whose value survives a crisis. The people who own gold outright and owe nothing against it are the people who come out of every crisis whole. India got its gold back because it could repay. Venezuela lost its gold because it could not. The mechanism does not care about your intentions. It cares about your ability to pay. Own it outright. Owe nothing against it. Hold it where no counterparty can claim it. That is the lesson of every pawn transaction in sovereign history. The pattern is mathematical. The outcome is inevitable. The only variable is you. Subscribe to the Fiscal Historian so you don't miss the next video.